On today's show, the Hawks go to Sacramento and absolutely obliterate the Kings on this Wednesday evening into Thursday. It was impressive. What does it all mean? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2101 of the Locked On Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you deep into the night here on a Wednesday evening into Thursday. And today's podcast is sponsored by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you bet just $5. If your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. And today, we'll be diving into what became a 133-100 road win for the Hawks. This is obviously a blasting of the Sacramento Kings on this Wednesday. The third straight win for Atlanta in definitely resounding fashion. They're now 7-5 overall this season. They're now 2 games over 500 for the first time since they were 22-20 last year. So this is one of those games that the nerds like me, honestly, will joke about and talk about how they juice all of the efficiency numbers. Like the Hawks net rating will jump quite a bit based on this one. But all joking aside, this is a good spot for the Hawks to get a win. But this was not just a run-of-the-mill win. The Hawks were dominant in this game basically from beginning to end. There was one minor lull that we'll talk about briefly in this game, but it was basically a woodshed kind of performance. And in the NBA, as I always say, you can't take anything for granted. And even teams that are in bad shape, like the Kings just candidly are right now, that does not assure anything. And the Hawks went out and beat them soundly in this performance. And that is definitely encouraging overall for Atlanta. On the player availability side, Nickeil Alexander-Walker returned in this game. That's positive news for the Hawks. So only Trae Young has been out from among the rotation players for the Hawks. They were back at relatively close to full strength in this game, whereas the Kings were on a back-to-back after playing the Nuggets last night and losing, and playing without 3 of their top 6 guys, in my opinion. Zach LaVine, Keegan Murray, and Malik Monk were all out. They're also their best 3 shooters. The Kings are bad, and they're poorly coached and all these things. And the Hawks, to their credit, as we'll talk about later on, took advantage, I think, schematically of what the Kings could not do in this game. And that's kind of the name of the game in the NBA, to exploit weaknesses of your opponent. And the Hawks did a really good job with that in this game, I thought. The Hawks were favored, according to our friends at FanDuel, in this game, as I thought they should have been. This is definitely a spot that I thought that they should win this game if they played well. And still, they overachieved that by leaps and bounds with the way they played in this game. I mentioned before, there was one lull in this game. They led 21-8 at the beginning of the contest. There was a minor hiccup late in the first quarter where the bench lineup was not playing very well. But then they were up by 20 at halftime, and they led by as many as 44 points. I know that a lot of Hawks fans would have been going to sleep because it was post-midnight in the fourth quarter, and there was a lot of garbage time in this game, quite frankly. Probably the last 8 minutes, there wasn't too much to learn, quite frankly, even if you're someone like me who's a total sicko. But the Hawks were in total control. Basically, from the middle of the second quarter on, it was not really in doubt as far as the result was concerned. There were 2 games last year. I want to look this up. That both of my notes and just the extra box score stuff from last year. 2 games that were relatively similar last year, in which the Hawks were just basically blowing out their opponent. There was a game in Charlotte back in March that had similarly fantastic shooting numbers. Like the Hawks had great numbers in this game, as we'll talk about in a second, with their shooting. They won by like 30 points on the road. It was a blowout win. Then the other one that I think is even more similar is that they won by 29 points last year in December on the road in Toronto. It was their 4th win in a row in that case. That was the Hawks' best stretch of last season at the end of December. And it really had it rolling at that point in time. And I think this game is similar to that one, and that it was like really good vibes. Like they were playing well. Jalen hadn't gotten hurt yet, for example. It was most of the roster was healthy. They were flying around, and that kind of felt like tonight. Obviously, the Hawks are not at full strength right now without Trae, but certainly they are playing like a team that is, as I've said many times now, constructed better this year than they have been for several seasons to withstand an absence here and absence there. And they put together a comprehensive performance in this game. As for the overall, I will cut this off at the end of the third quarter. Most of the fourth quarter numbers were pretty irrelevant, in my opinion, in this game. At the end of the third quarter, I made note of this. The Hawks had a 130 offensive rating through 3 quarters. That means they scored 1.3 points every possession on average. That's absolutely fantastic. And they had an 84 defensive rating through 3 quarters. That is equally Fantastic. So is that sustainable long-term? Certainly not. But they were, that kind of tells you more about their dominance. And we'll get into this later on. We'll talk about player-by-player evaluations. Every single one of the starters for the Hawks finished this game at plus 32 or better. Plus 32 or better. Well, none of them played more than 27 minutes. That's crazy. That is a ludicrous drubbing. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was plus 44 in 22 minutes. Zachary Richichet was plus 41 in 22 minutes. When the starters were playing, this game was not competitive. That's the simple way that I can put it. I know Kings coach Doug Christie talked after the game and it kind of went crazy about their lack of effort in his mind. There was probably some of that, but look, the Hawks were just in a different class than the Kings on this night, and that's impressive stuff. The Hawks take care of business, and I don't want to overuse that phrase, but there are nights in the NBA where you should win if you take care of business and show up and play well. And this is one of those nights, but that means winning by 6, winning by 10, not by 44 in the second half of this game and absolutely cruising. So the Hawks played great overall. Offensively, it was impressive from Atlanta in this game. They took it to, yes, as I mentioned on the preview last night on the show. By the way, I did an episode last night that was about the first 11 games of the season. It's been busy on the podcast. If you're a new listener, please subscribe to Locked On Hawks and catch up on the old stuff as well. It's still relevant at this point in time. But at the end of that show, I did talk about how the Kings were a bottom 5 defense coming into the night. That showed up in a big way. I will give credence to my good friend Grant Shirley, good Hawks fan, diehard Hawks fan, who has a lot of good observations about the Hawks. He mentioned post-game I saw on Twitter, and I found myself nodding that this is the worst defense the Hawks have seen this year, at least in the way that they performed. And the Hawks played the Nets. The Kings just kind of rolled over in this one, but the Hawks did a good job attacking that over and over and over again. And the word I used at one point was relentless. The only real issue offensively in the entire game was ball security. They had 21 turnovers. That's too many. But besides that, everything else was like pristine. For example, they shot 58% from the field in this game. They were 32 of 45 on twos. That's a elite kind of figure. They were 17 of 40. That's 42% from three. Their attempts went way up in this game, which is good to see, especially early on. That was a concern that I brought up yesterday on the show. Like the Hawks were not generating enough threes overall. That was not a problem at all in this game. They had a season high in the entire NBA, 42 assists on 49 made field goals. That generally means that you're setting up and getting a lot of really good looks. And again, opponent adjust that a little bit if you want to for context, but the Hawks were able to attack, and also play super duper fast in this game. That's a key to what the Hawks want to do overall in general, but even more so with their current available personnel. They do need to play fast to avoid playing half-court offense as much as humanly possible. And tonight, they had 99th percentile frequency in transition. What that means is they ran on 26% of their possessions. That is a crazy, crazy high number, and they scored about 1.5 points every time they ran. Now, that might seem nerdy, I get it, but here's another one for you. They had 33 fast break points. That is a crazy high number, for example. So last year, I think they only had that number a couple times all season. That was their season high this year in fast break points. They were relentless in running, and again, the Kings were part of that for sure, but the Hawks were pedal to the metal the entire way. Yeah, in fact, actually, I just checked this. Last year, they only had 33 once, and that was their season high last year. So today was their most fast break points in two seasons. Not a small thing, especially when they could have probably had more if they were pedal to the metal in the fourth quarter. The glass was not anything great. They only set up as rebounds, but they also didn't miss very many shots in this game, and they had really good balance. They had 7 guys score double figures in this one, and also every single guy who played, 12 guys who were active, everyone played, everyone scored. Is that a huge thing? No, but it was a balanced performance. Yes, the bench had a couple of rough spots in the second quarter, but it was comprehensive. I'll say this later on as well. Jalen Johnson was dominant in this game. And there were flashes. I mentioned this on the show after the game on Tuesday, where defensively Jalen played, I thought, probably his best half of the season in the second half on Tuesday as part of that win. And today he was just absolutely relentless going to the rim offensively. He ended up with 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists in 24 minutes. He missed 1 shot, and it was a 3. He was 7-7 on twos, 2 of 3 from 3. Like, he was just ridiculous, and that set a very nice tone, I would say, offensively, because, when Jalen is the best player, and he was the best player in this game, they are, let's just say, in good shape. Now, defensively, it was pretty good. It wasn't as good as the offense, I didn't think, but defensively, they were really good. And again, I mentioned before, the plan was very well executed. The Kings came in with basically no shooting. Maybe you could say Keon Ellis, who's a good player, come off the bench. He's probably a real shooter. Everybody else on the roster for the Kings is not, other than Doug McDermott, who doesn't really play for them. Like, they started a team with Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder in the backcourt, with DeMar DeRozan, Precious Achiuwa, and Domantas Sabonis. That is basically the worst shooting lineup that you can put on an NBA court as a starting lineup, and they did that. And to the Hawks' credit, they packed the paint and took away the paint and made them take threes, and that worked fantastically. Obviously, at the end of the night, the Kings ended up making 14 threes. A lot of those were in garbage time. For the vast majority of the game, that strategy was pristine. They walled off the rim. The Hawks were using their size. Porzingis had his best defensive game of the season, I think. He was really good around the rim in general. The Hawks blocked 6 shots. They had 14 steals, 20 turnovers created. They rebounded the ball well in this game, which is, let's just say, not been a given this season. That was one of their best showings of the season on that side of things. So it was, again, comprehensive. The Hawks were really, really, really good in this one. Hopefully that's as effusive as I'm making it sound. You don't want to overweight it. It's one game, but the Hawks played great, and the results were what the results were. So we'll have much more nuance, and we'll talk about how this game kind of unfolded later on. But yes, they played a bad opponent tonight, but that's not a given at all. And the Hawks played extremely well and got their third straight win, and they're 7-5 on the season. All right, more to come in a second after a word from partners. The holidays are right around the corner right now, and that means it's time to get your home ready for those holidays, whether you actually need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting. Wayfair has a Black Friday sale, and it's here to help you make space really shine around you. And the best part is you have to wait at all, really. Their Black Friday sale at Wayfair is happening right now. The deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off. Everything from sofas to spatulas. I recently upgraded a chair from Wayfair, and it completely transformed the room that I was looking for right away. With Wayfair, I actually can't believe how fast everything ships as well. It allows you to get everything you need just in time for the holidays. Plenty of time, I would say, at this point. You can browse through their site right now. It's easy to find pieces that actually fit the style that you're looking for. And there's nothing really generic about Wayfair, just quality designs that feel personal to you. If you've ever hosted a family before for the holidays, you know how much a difference a couple of touches can make in your own personal space in various rooms or in your house. And Wayfair makes it all easy for you. Do not miss out on Black Friday deals and do so early with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now and shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale up to 70% off. 70% off. That's Wayfair, Wayfair, wayfair.com. The sale ends December 7th. Have your health or family needs changed lately? Georgia's got you covered. Georgia Access is our state's marketplace for Georgians to compare, apply, and enroll health insurance plans that offer the best value for their individual needs. Open enrollment is happening now. Visit georgiaaccess.gov today. That's georgiaaccess.gov. Georgia Access, health insurance for Georgia by Georgia. All right, more on the game in a second, but I want to encourage you right now to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check out the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Please subscribe to the pod, and importantly, tell your friends and your colleagues about this show. I very much appreciate you listening and your support of the podcast. We'll dive in now to how this game kind of unfolded, and the Hawks were aggressive. That's a word that was in my notes quite a bit in the first half of this game. I know that on the show on Tuesday night that they had not been able to take a lot of threes this season, especially in the last few games where they're not playing quite the same way offensively. They took 7 in the first 3.5 minutes of this game. They were clearly hunting them, and again, able to break the paint, break down the defense, and expose the issues on the perimeter for the Kings. Atlanta led 21-8. After about 5 minutes, they made 4 threes in the first 5 minutes. They had 8 fast break points in the first 4 minutes, and they were consistently breaking the paint, and they were pretty hapless to stop it, were the Kings. And also, as a note, they were good. That was a good sign to avoid the slow start that they have had too many times, I would say, this season. None of that in this game whatsoever. The starters were dominant. Rotationally, it was 10 guys who played for the Hawks in the competitive portion of the game. It was Okongwu, Kennard, Gay, and Krejci as the first 4 off the bench. As a note, Alexander Walker started next to Daniels. That was the expected outcome once he came back from his back injury. And by the way, Nikhil was interviewed during the game and said his back felt good. Love to see that. Keen Wallace did get in as the 10th guy. It did not go well in the first stint. The only thing that I will kind of nitpick about lineups and all that stuff is that the lineup at the end of the first quarter just didn't make any sense whatsoever, and the results were not very good. They played a lineup with Wallace, Krejci, and Kennard together for no real reason. And also, Jalen wasn't even on the court. So they had a lineup for a while in the competitive portion, first half of this game, with no Dyson, no Nikhil, and no Jalen. That doesn't make any sense. Now, did it hurt them in the game? Yes. Well, it hurt them. Big picture, no. They won this game by a lot of points. But the only time this game got close was because that lineup was not good. So that was adjusted later on, but I wanted to at least flag that. It was not the best process in the world. Quinn also lost a challenge early on. That wasn't the worst one I've ever seen. I didn't love it because they challenged a charge on Jalen in the first quarter. You want Jalen to stay aggressive. That definitely ended up working, but he lost the challenge. Dyson had a rough start offensively. He missed some layups. He short-armed a three early on in the game, but they were still up by 15 points at one point in the first half. In the first quarter. But it was down to 3 at the end of the first quarter because the Kings scored 12 points in about 2 minutes at the end of the first. And the Hawks did whatever they wanted offensively the entire quarter. But it was kind of at the end of the quarter, it got a little bit muddy. And they got called for 3 offensive fouls in the last 5 minutes of the first quarter. And the Kings were, let's just say, accentuating the contact. That's my observation from that stretch. But again, from that point forward, it was pretty much all Hawks. The Kings missed their first, I think it was 9 of their first 10 shots in the in the second quarter. They scored 3 points in 6 minutes. The Hawks clamped down in a big way defensively. Atlanta went on an 8-0 run to go up by 16, and it was never close again. At that point, the Hawks were shooting 75% on twos. That cooled off a little bit, but not that much, basically. I thought Richeche was awesome defensively in the first half, particularly bothering the small guards of the Kings. Atlanta was up by 20 at halftime. The starters were totally dominant in that first half, as they were the entire game. Jalen had 18 and 5 in the first half. The Hawks also Jalen had not shot the ball well all season long from 3-point range. He was 5 of 23 from 3 coming into the game, and he was 2 of 3 in the first half. That's not a huge sample, but I think the regression was probably going to be coming in a good direction for the Hawks, but that was positive. And then defensively, I said it once before, the Hawks did a really good job. It was all over my notes again to recognize the Kings' lack of shooting and take full advantage of that to really wall off the paint. Use Porzingis as a 7-3 guy that he is around the rim. That was effective, and they played well there. Then the game really became over. Like, look, the Hawks are up by 20 at halftime. 20-point leads in the NBA can go away. That happens all the time, honestly. But the game really ended with the beginning of the third quarter. The Hawks went on a 19-6 run to begin the third to go up by 33. That was basically the game. I thought it was kind of appropriate that Russell Westbrook, who I thought was just terrible in this game, Russ is a first ballot Hall of Famer, awesome career. He was terrible tonight. He missed a literally wide open layup on the first possession of the third quarter. And the Richeche had a huge dunk in transition. The Kings pulled their starters, all 5 of them, like 3 minutes into the half. Doug Christie is, I think, scrambling right now. He's not having fun, let's just say, with the Kings. Richeche flexed after he finished through contact early in the third when the Hawks were up by 36. Nikhil Alexander-Walker checked out for the last time in the game after 22 minutes, and again was plus 44 when he did so. That was wild to see. It was a 37-point game at the end of the third quarter. Veet Krejci had a couple threes. Veet finally missed some threes at the end of the game. But at one point, I think through 3 quarters tonight, so in 7 quarters, Veet was 11 of 13 from 3. That's pretty good. The Hawks shot 75% from the field in the third quarter to blow things open. Now, one more nitpick. Porzingis came back in to start the fourth quarter. And I don't really have any idea why. I think that maybe they wanted him to get his wind or something. I didn't love that with a guy who obviously has some durability issues. The game was over. I would have projected Porzingis to sit out on Thursday on the back-to-back either way. And that, by the way, is still my assumption. People asked that a lot tonight during the game. I have never said, and I will never say, unless I hear this directly, that he definitely won't play tomorrow. I don't know that. What I said on the show the other day when this happened was that my projection is going to be that Porzingis sits back-to-backs until we see him play one. That's kind of where I'm operating. And I think it would make even less sense for him to come back in the fourth quarter if he was going to play tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm going to guess he's not going to play, but we will see on that when the injury report comes out on Thursday afternoon. Anyway, they finally brought in Asa Newell and Caleb Houston for the final 8 minutes of the game after it had been a 44-point lead. By the way, people were asking why that was only the guys that they had available. The Hawks actually, I would say kind of unfortunately, had sent N'Faly Dante and Jacob Toppin back to Atlanta to join College Park between the game on Tuesday the game on Monday and the game tonight. So that was unfortunate timing because those guys want to play tonight. But the Hawks only had 12 guys in uniform. So that meant that they had to close the game still playing guys like Veet and Mo because they were out of players. They had to use somebody that was a rotation guy even at the end of the game. But that was kind of it. It was, it was not the most high level basketball the last 8 minutes or so. That was obviously fine given the margin. If the Hawks had been trying like full bore, they might have won by 50, to be honest with you. But in the end, 33 is 33, and that's more than good enough in this game, especially when the starters were, again, every single starter, plus 32 or more, usually a good sign for the way that you played in that spot. All right, in a second, I'll dive into how each player performed, a quick look at the Pelicans, even the Bucks, and more after a word from our partners. No one likes paying rent, me included. But if you actually have to pay rent, like I do, you might as well get something for it, and that's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning rent payments into real rewards that you can actually use when you pay your rent through BILT. You have flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of different hotels and airlines, future rent payments, and your next Lyft ride, and many more things beyond that. But BILT's not just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. With BILT, your rent actually works for you. You can earn points every single month on something you actually have to pay anyway, which is rent, like I have to pay again. When it comes to like grabbing food at local restaurants that you love or just simply heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards with the folks at BILT. From your neighborhood to your travel plans, BILT has made everyday life feel even more rewarding for you. Turn a rent into rewards. Start earning points right now around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. That's JOINBILT. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. And make sure to use that link so that actually that you know they know that we sent you to them. One more time, it's joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. The NBA is here. There's no better place to get on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you actually missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand during the game, FanDuel has a lot of bets on everything that you're looking for, from who's going to score next to comebacks in the fourth quarters and everything in between. Plus, if you want to, you can combine your live bets together into a segment parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. On top of that, they have all kinds of bet types at FanDuel that you can think of, from point spreads to over-unders, money lines, game props, player props, future bets, and so much more. They cover all the sports you can think of as well. That includes the NBA, which we discuss all the time on this podcast. Plus, they have football, wall-to-wall football, NFL, college football, etc., college basketball. They have baseball, hockey, soccer, both domestic and international leagues, golf, tennis, NASCAR, F1, boxing, MMA, and so many more sports beyond that. Plus, FanDuel's really easy to use, and they're fast to pay out when you win. They keep every game more exciting at FanDuel, especially when your team's making that late push in the game. And right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. So the place to go is FanDuel.com. Sign up right now and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, and before I dive into the players, a quick look if you heard the show on Tuesday into Wednesday, you will know I did a whole segment about the Pelicans pick, and that will not be rehashed in full on this podcast. But they lost again tonight at home to the Blazers. New Orleans is now 2-9, which is great news for the Hawks. Their next 4 games are the Lakers, the Warriors, the Thunder, and the Nuggets. They're all at home, but those could all be losses. I'm not saying they are, but they certainly all could be. And as a reminder, the Hawks should be rooting against the Pelicans every night, all season long. Even when, by the way, Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears have been playing better than I would have thought they would, and it hasn't mattered, which is not great for the Pelicans. Anyway, the Bucks also lost. I do think the Hawks are way more likely to get the Pelicans pick than the Bucks pick. Someone asked me actually after the show last night if it was even worth like monitoring the Bucks closely. I would say yes. It's not as important as the Pelicans, and I would say it's just not a 0% chance that it's the Bucks pick instead of the Pelicans pick. If nothing else, it would definitely increase the odds for the Hawks in the lottery if the Bucks miss the playoffs. So if Giannis plays all year long, I think Milwaukee will make the playoffs, candidly. But if there's anything weird there, that's not a bad thing at all. So keep an eye on that if you want to. All right, back to the game itself. The Hawks were, again, generally dominant in this one. The bench numbers were not as good as the starter numbers. In fact, everyone other than Okongwu off the bench was in the negative and the plus-minus in a 33-point win, which is kind of funny. Houston and Newell played the last 8 minutes. Not much to add about those guys. Houston hit 2 threes. Newell hit a 3 as well. They combined for 11 points. They were -8 in those minutes. They had 4 combined fouls, 3 combined turnovers. Like, it was kind of just like garbage time, and that's fine. Asa probably could have played a little bit more than he did. Honestly, the game was probably in hand, but it is what it is. Keen Wallace, 4 points, 4 assists, 2 fouls, 4 steals, which is nice, 2 turnovers, -5. I thought Keaton was okay outside of the first stint that he played was pretty rough. But I still I don't want to pick on him too much. I don't think I would play Keaton on a night when they have Dyson and Nikhil both available. I think a 9-man rotation with Veet would be what I would roll with right now. It's not crazy to play Keaton, but if you're going to do that, I wouldn't have him play without Jalen, without Nikhil, without Dyson. That's kind of silly, but alas. Veet Krejci, 11 points, 4 assists, 4 fouls. Veet hit 3 threes. He did miss his last 2, but he has been scalding hot. The shooting is what it is. He played fine other than that. Moge, 20 minutes, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. He was actually minus 12, which is a game worst. He played that garbage time, which is probably the reason why for that. Mo looked fine to me. He missed all 3 of his threes, but nothing to be concerned about whatsoever there. Luke Kennard, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals for Luke. He actually hit 3 threes as well, 3 of 6 in 21 minutes, 2 of 2 on 2s. I thought he looked good for the most part. Okongwu had 21 points in 21 minutes. Usually a good sign. He missed only 1 shot in the game. He was 4 of 4 on 2s, 2 of 3 from 3. That's the line 8 times. That's always good. 3 rebounds, 2 assists for Onyeka, and a steal along the way. Was plus 15 off the bench and looked very, very good, I thought, in this one. All 5 starters were obviously quite effective. Dyson had the only bad shooting night. He was 2 of 9 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. Dyson had 5 points only. His shooting has been a little bit concerning, I have to say. I think he's played really well, but he's only taken 12 threes in 12 games. That needs to change. I'm not saying he has to bomb, but I think he needs to take more threes than he's been taking recently. But other than that, he's still been playing well. 8 assists. That speaks for itself. 2 steals. His record still is going about consecutive games with a steal. That's a franchise record, of course. Plus 38 in the game. Like, he played well despite a bad shooting night, and not really much beyond that. Porzingis, 13 points on 12 shots, 6 assists. He made his first 3 and his last 3 and missed the 3 in between. Still, only 3 of 7 on 2s. He's not been the most efficient right now by his standards offensively, but I think he played better defense tonight, which is actually encouraging. Nikhil looked good in his return, 14 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 turnovers. That's probably too many for him, but he was clearly thrilled to be playing. Again, he had not missed a game in like 2.5 years, and then he missed 2 games in a row. So knock on wood, the back responds well, but they, of course, need him to be good, and he was for the most part. In this one, Risha 15 points on 8 shots. He was very, very efficient in this one. 3 rebounds and an assist for Zach. Had a steal, a couple of big finishes around the rim, including a big dunk with the left hand. I thought he played great, honestly. Defensively, he was flying around. It was a good Zach night for sure. And then I mentioned this already once, but Jalen Johnson was just awesome in this game. Like, his best game of the year. Again, you want to adjust everyone basically a little bit about the opponent and the context in this game, but I thought Jalen was just dominant. 24, 10, and 8 in 24 minutes. 7 of 7 from 2, 2 of 3 from 3. Had a steal as well, like plus 39. Like, he was just really, really good, really, really engaged. And for me, his best 6 quarters of defense of the season have been the last 6, which is what you want to see. I was critical, and I think I stand by that. The Hawks need him to be better defensively, and he has been the last game and a half. More of that would be good for Jalen Johnson. All right, before we get out of here, a reminder, the Hawks play a back-to-back, so they play actually less than 24 hours later. They play in Utah on Thursday evening. Of the 2 games, I thought the Jazz game actually was the more dangerous one of the 2 because of the situation. Yes, Utah was supposed to be bad this year, and they have been not incredible, but Sacramento is playing worse than Utah, objectively. And tonight, Atlanta had the rest advantage on their side. Had the Kings played last night, for example. Utah has the advantage tomorrow because they were off tonight, and it's at altitude, Salt Lake City. It's a weird flight. It's a short turnaround. Like, the shortest allowed turnaround is like 23 hours. That's what's going to happen in this game. So it's a pretty tough schedule spot. Now, it is definitely easier because the Hawks won so easily today. They didn't have to push as hard. That is generally helpful for getting guys legs for the next game. But the Jazz have been, I would say, competitive this year. They still have like a -5 net rating, which is not good, but that's better than expected. They're 4-7 on the year. They've been pretty interesting. They're also well coached. Like, I don't think the Kings are well coached, to be 100% honest with you, by NBA standards, but the Jazz are. Will Hardy is very good. And just to say that, like, I'm saying this as a long windup, people are going to be surprised by this, but our friends at FanDuel right now, against a Jazz team that's not very good, I get that. Our friends at FanDuel make the Hawks only a 2-point favorite as of right now. So it is the harder game compared to today. For example, today they were 4.5, 5-point favorites against the Kings. It goes down to 2 tomorrow. Now, you're still favored in the game. Like, it's not an impossible spot by any means, but of the 2 games, and I would have said this yesterday too, The harder one was the Utah game. So we'll see how this goes. But still, again, I've been saying it for a week now. This is a chance to rack up some wins. Usually West Coast trips are not kind, but this is the easier one of the trips this year. There's 2 always. This is the easier one. The Clippers are not playing well at all. That they beat them. The Kings are a mess. The Jazz are not incredible. And then the Suns are playing actually pretty well right now by the Sun standards, but that's not like you're not playing the Nuggets, let's just say. So I say all that. Take care of business. You got to do that. But the Hawks did that tonight in a resounding way. So vibes are good. Everyone's upbeat about the team right now with good reason. And 7-5 with a chance to go to 8-5. Last year, by the way, their high water mark for the season was 3 games over 500. So if they can reach that tomorrow, that would be a good place to be in mid-November. But we'll have full coverage of that game as always. As a quick reminder also, it's a little bit of an earlier start. So it's only 9 o'clock Eastern time. That's still quite late for usual, but it was 10:30 Monday, 10 o'clock tonight. I'm recording this podcast around 2 a.m. right now. So forgive any blurriness to my speech or eyes or any of that stuff. I am tired, but it is what it is. It's West Coast and a little bit earlier on Thursday. So please stay tuned. Please subscribe to Locked on Hawks anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked on Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow my Blue Sky if you want to at BT Rowland. And then my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks can be found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody stay tuned for a show tomorrow night. We'll see you all next time.